Oscar winners Best Picture, 1927 to 2025. 1927-28, Wings, directed by William A. Wellman. 1928-29, The Broadway Melody, directed by Harry Beaumont. 1929-30, All Quiet on the Western Front, directed by Edward Berger. 1930-31, Cimarron, directed by Wesley Ruggles. 1931-32, Grand Hotel, directed by Edmund Goulding. 1932-33, Cavalcade, directed by Frank Lloyd. 1934, It Happened One Night, directed by Frank Capra. 1935, Mutiny on the Bounty, directed by Frank Lloyd. 1936, The Great Ziegfeld, directed by Robert Z. Leonard. 1937, The Life of Émile Zola, directed by William Dieterle. 1938, You Can't Take It With You, directed by Frank Capra. 1939, Gone with the Wind, directed by Victor Fleming. 1940, Rebecca, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. 1941, How Green Was My Valley, directed by John Ford. 1942, Mrs. Miniver, directed by William Wyler. 1943, Casablanca, directed by Michael Curtiz. 1944, Going My Way, directed by Leo Macari. 1945, The Lost Weekend, directed by Billy Wilder. 1946, The Best Years of Our Lives, directed by William Wyler. 1947, Gentleman's Agreement, directed by Elia Kazan. 1948, Hamlet, directed by Laurence Olivier. 1949, All the King's Men, directed by Robert Rossen. 1950, All About Eve, directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. 1951, An American in Paris, directed by Vincente Minnelli. 1952, The Greatest Show on Earth, directed by Cecil B. DeMille. 1953, From Here to Eternity, directed by Fred Zinnemann. 1954, On the Waterfront, directed by Elia Kazan. 1955, Marty, directed by Delbert Mann. 1956, Around the World in 80 Days, directed by Michael Anderson. 1957, The Bridge on the River Kwai, directed by David Lean. 1958, Gigi, directed by Vincente Minnelli. 1959, Ben-Hur, directed by William Wyler. 1960, The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder.
1961, West Side Story, directed by Robert Wise and Jerome Robbins. 1962, Lawrence of Arabia, directed by David Lean. 1963, Tom Jones, directed by Tony Richardson. 1964, My Fair Lady, directed by George Cukor. 1965, The Sound of Music, directed by Robert Wise. 1966, A Man for All Seasons, directed by Fred Zinnemann. 1967, In the Heat of the Night, directed by Norman Jewison. 1968, Oliver, directed by Carol Reed. 1969, Midnight Cowboy, directed by John Schlesinger. 1970, Patton, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. 1971, The French Connection, directed by William Friedkin. 1972, The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. 1973, The Sting, directed by George Roy Hill. 1974, The Godfather Part 2, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. 1975, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, directed by Milos Forman. 1976, Rocky, directed by John G. Avildsen. 1977, Annie Hall, directed by Woody Allen. 1978, The Deer Hunter, directed by Michael Cimino.
1979, Kramer vs. Kramer, directed by Robert Benton. 1980, Ordinary People, directed by Robert Redford. 1981, Chariots of Fire, directed by Hugh Hudson. 1982, Gandhi, directed by Richard Attenborough. 1983, Terms of Endearment, directed by James L. Brooks. 1984, Amadeus, directed by Milos Forman. 1985, Out of Africa, directed by Sidney Pollack. 1986, Platoon, directed by Oliver Stone. 1987, The Last Emperor, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. 1988, Rain Man, directed by Barry Levinson. 1989, Driving Miss Daisy, directed by Bruce Beresford. 1990, Dances with Wolves, directed by Kevin Costner. 1991, The Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme. 1992, Unforgiven, directed by Clint Eastwood. 1993, Schindler's List, directed by Steven Spielberg. 1994, Forrest Gump, directed by Robert Zemeckis. 1995, Braveheart, directed by Mel Gibson. 1996, The English Patient, directed by Anthony Minghella. 1997, Titanic, directed by James Cameron. 1998, Shakespeare in Love, directed by John Madden. 1999, American Beauty, directed by Sam Mendes. 2000, Gladiator, directed by Ridley Scott.
2001, A Beautiful Mind, directed by Ron Howard. 2002, Chicago, directed by Rob Marshall. 2003, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, directed by Peter Jackson. 2004, $1 Million Baby, directed by Clint Eastwood. 2005, Crash, directed by Paul Haggis. 2006, The Departed, directed by Martin Scorsese. 2007, No Country for All Men, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. 2008, Slumdog Millionaire, directed by Danny Boyle. 2009, The Hurt Locker, directed by Catherine Bigelow. 2010, The King's Speech, directed by Tom Hooper. 2011, The Artist, directed by Michelle Hazanavicius. 2012, Argo, directed by Ben Affleck. 2013, 12 Years a Slave, directed by Steve McQueen. 2014, Birdman, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu. 2015, Spotlight, directed by Tom McCarthy. 2016, Moonlight, directed by Barry Jenkins. 2017, The Shape of Water, directed by Guillermo del Toro. 2018, Green Book, directed by Peter Farrelly. 2019, Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho. 2020, Nomadland, directed by Chloe Zhao. 2021, Coda, directed by Sian Heder. 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Daniel Scheinert, Daniel Kwan.
2023, Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. 2024, Anora, directed by Sean Baker. 2025, One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.